Chapter 1, The Whispering Abbey, Studio Microphone, Soft Gregorian Chants Fade In. Wind howls through the ruins. In the mist-covered hills of northern France, there stood an abbey so old that even the monks who lived within its walls had forgotten who built it. The locals called it Abbaye du Silence, the Abbey of Silence. For centuries, it was said that at midnight, when the bell tolled 12, whispers could be heard echoing through its empty corridors, whispers in a language no one alive could understand. The villagers kept their distance. They said the monks guarded something sacred. Or something cursed, but one man was drawn to it, Father Antoine Morel, a young scholar-priest from Paris. He had heard rumors of a lost manuscript buried beneath the abbey, a text so dangerous the church itself had forbidden it. When Antoine arrived, the abbey seemed lifeless, thick ivy crawled up its walls, and the bell tower leaned like a dying giant. The heavy wooden doors creaked as he entered. Inside, a cold silence greeted him, the kind that seemed to breathe. A single monk appeared from the shadows. His name was Brother Lucien, an old man with pale eyes that never blinked for too long. Father Morel, he whispered, you shouldn't have come. The truth sleeps here, and those who wake it never rest again. But Antoine was not afraid. He had studied forbidden texts, the secrets of the Templars, and even the Vatican's lost archives. He believed the abbey held proof of something the church had erased, a gospel that told a different story about the birth of faith itself. That night, as rain fell like tears on the old stone roof, Antoine lit a candle and explored the crypt. Cobwebs hung like ghosts, and Latin inscriptions covered the walls. Veritas sub sanguine latet. The truth lies hidden beneath blood. Sunrise. Chapter 1, Rise of Yubar, the city of 1,000 pillars, in the heart of the Arabian desert, where the dunes stretch endlessly under a burning sun. Legends whisper of a city unlike any other, a city of gold, power, and pride. They called it Yubar, or in ancient tongues, Iram of the Pillars, the city of 1,000 columns. Thousands of years ago, when the world was young and the desert still held rivers, there lived a mighty ruler, King Shaddad ibn Ad, the son of a proud tribe known as Ad. The Ad people were strong, wise, and wealthy. They traded frankincense, the treasure of the desert, with Egypt, Mesopotamia, and even faraway lands beyond the sea. But Shaddad was no ordinary king. He was a man who dreamed of immortality. He looked at the heavens and said, if paradise exists in the sky, I will build mine on earth. And so, he commanded his people to create a city so magnificent that even the angels would envy it. The city rose slowly from the sands, towers carved from marble, capped with gold, walls inlaid with silver and sapphire, streets paved with polished stone that shimmered like mirrors beneath the desert sun. Palm gardens surrounded the palace, fountains poured scented water, and in the night, the city glowed like a jewel beneath the stars. Merchants came from every land, drawn by its beauty. Poets sang of its glory. Travelers called it the miracle of Arabia. But as the city's splendor grew, so did its pride. Its people forgot gratitude. They worshipped gold instead of God, and the king who once sought paradise began to call himself divine. In their arrogance, they mocked the prophets who warned them of judgment. They laughed at the winds, at the storms, believing the desert itself bowed to them. And then silence. For many nights, the wind stopped, the air grew heavy, the stars dimmed, and the people of Yubar, blind in their arrogance, did not see that the desert was watching. Tornado. Chapter 2, The Wrath of the Desert. One night, as the moon vanished behind dark clouds, the first signs appeared. A tremor rolled beneath the earth, faint, then stronger. The wells began to dry, the palms withered. A sound, like distant thunder, echoed from beyond the dunes. The prophets cried out, repent, for the wrath of the heavens is upon you. But laughter answered them, and then, the storm came. The sky split open with roaring winds, howling like beasts unleashed from the underworld. Walls of sand rose higher than any tower, lightning flashed crimson across the horizon, and the marble pillars cracked like bones beneath the weight of the storm. The people ran through the streets, blinded by dust, screaming prayers that no longer reached the heavens. King Shaddad fled to his golden palace, clutching his treasures, shouting to the sky, I am the lord of this city. None shall take it from me. But the desert had no mercy. In a single night, Yubar, the city that defied the heavens, was swallowed whole. The storm raged until dawn, and when the sun rose again, there was nothing left, no towers, no gardens, no sound, only an endless sea of sand. Travelers who passed that way in later years said the ground felt hollow, as if something slept beneath it. At night, they claimed to hear faint echoes, the cries of the lost, whispering from under the dunes. We were mighty once, until pride turned us to dust. And so, Yubar became a legend, a ghost city, spoken of only in fireside tales, a warning from the desert itself, that no empire, no matter how great, can escape the weight of its own arrogance. But there was more. The text spoke of a hidden chamber beneath the abbey's altar, where the monks had sealed away a relic that could show the face of truth. Suddenly, a sound, footsteps. He turned sharply, candle shaking. In the doorway stood Brother Lucien, his face half hidden by the shadows. You've read it. Lucien whispered, his voice trembling, then you have doomed us all. Antoine stepped back, clutching the manuscript. What is this, brother? What truth were you hiding? Lucien's eyes glistened with tears, the truth that man was never meant to know. That faith was not born of light, but of a lie. Lightning flashed, Lucien raised his hand, in it gleamed a dagger. Old and rusted but deadly, they made us swear, Father Morel. If the book was ever opened again, the blood of the reader must seal it shut. Antoine stumbled backward as Lucien advanced. Brother Lucien, stop. The world deserves to know. But Lucien's face was twisted with both sorrow and duty. He lunged, the blade slashed across Antoine's arm, the candle fell, and the chamber plunged into darkness. In the pitch black, Antoine ran blindly through the corridor, clutching the manuscript to his chest. Behind him, Lucien's screams echoed, cries of pain, or perhaps prayers of repentance. When Antoine burst into the main hall, the abbey bell began to toll again, 13 times. Though no one was there to ring it, he looked back once more. Through the doorway of the crypt, a faint red light glowed, pulsing like a heartbeat, and from the shadows, a whisper rose again, not one voice, but many. The truth is awake. Studio microphone, sound, thunder crash. Chant rises, bell fades to silence. But the mystery did not end there. Local Bedouins still say that at night, when the wind howls over the sands, you can hear voices, the echo of a city that once glittered beneath the desert sun. Sometimes, travelers claim to see faint lights far in the empty quarter, dancing like flames across the horizon. Perhaps they are mirages. Or perhaps, the spirits of Yubar still guard their golden city, lost to time but not forgotten. As the narrator's voice fades, the camera drifts across the endless sands, the desert silent once more, the wind whispering through its dunes. He was the first light, the one they erased. Antoine's heart raced. Could it be? Was this the original prophet the church replaced, the true founder of faith before history was rewritten? Suddenly, the golden seal began to glow, veins of red spreading through it like fire beneath glass. A voice filled the chamber, deep, ancient, echoing through the stone. You have broken the seal of silence. The watchers have awakened. Antoine staggered backward. From the walls, the painted figures of the monks seemed to move, their eyes bleeding as whispers filled the air, and among them, a shadow emerged, tall, cloaked, its face hidden beneath a hood. Who are you? Antoine gasped. A guardian, the voice replied. Bound to the truth by blood. You were warned, priest. Antoine raised the manuscript. I seek only knowledge. The figure stepped closer, its presence freezing the air. Knowledge was never forbidden, it said, but truth. Truth destroys. With a swift motion, the guardian drew a dagger and sliced his palm. Blood dripped onto the floor, forming the serpent symbol Antoine had seen before. Now you are marked. The keepers will come for you. The truth you carry belongs to no man. As the guardian vanished into smoke, Antoine collapsed, gasping for air. The manuscript's pages flared open by themselves, words glowing crimson, to reveal the truth. The blood of the seeker must anoint the relic. His vision blurred, he reached toward the altar, pressing his bleeding hand against the glowing seal. There was a burst of light, blinding, pure, and filled with whispers. He saw flashes, monks burning scrolls, popes rewriting holy texts, kings kneeling before lies written as divine law. Then, darkness. When Antoine awoke, he was lying at the top of the chapel stairs. The storm was gone. The abbey was silent once more, but the manuscript was gone, and on the altar, in fresh blood, one phrase had appeared: the seal is broken. Crossed Swords Chapter 4, The Hunt for the Truth, studio microphone, sound, wind roaring over stone ruins. Footsteps echo, dawn broke over the abbey of silence, but the sun could not pierce the heavy mist. Father Antoine awoke on the cold chapel floor, his clothes torn, his arm bandaged crudely with a piece of monk's robe. He did not remember binding it. The manuscript was gone, but he felt its presence still, pulsing somewhere beneath the earth. He whispered, "They took it. The keepers." He stumbled outside. The valley stretched empty, yet the air felt alive with unseen eyes. As he reached the old stone road leading toward the village, he noticed fresh carriage tracks in the mud, heavy wheels and horse prints leading north. Someone had come during the night and left with the book. Studio microphone, sound, crows calling. Church bells far in distance. By evening, Antoine reached the town of Montrevel. He found refuge in a small tavern where traders and pilgrims gathered. His cloak was drenched, his face pale, but his eyes, burning with obsession. At a corner table, he unrolled a small parchment he'd hidden in his sleeve, a rubbing from the manuscript's final page before it vanished. It showed a sigil, a serpent encircling a cross, surrounded by words. Roma custodet ultimum verbum. Rome guards the final word. Rome, the Vatican. Antoine knew what it meant. The truth had been taken back to the very place that once buried it. He looked up to find a stranger watching him, tall, dressed in black, his face partly hidden under a hood. The man's voice was calm, almost kind. "You seek what was never meant to be found, Father Morel." Antoine's hand went to his satchel, gripping a small crucifix dagger. "Who are you?" "A servant of the Holy Office," the man said, revealing a silver insignia of the Inquisition. "You opened the blood seal. You woke something ancient." Antoine rose from his chair. "I uncovered the truth your masters buried for centuries. You fear it." The Inquisitor's gaze hardened. "What we fear, Father, is chaos. Men need faith, not facts. You've disturbed the balance." Suddenly, 3 more men entered the tavern, their robes bearing the same insignia. Antoine's pulse quickened. He threw the table aside, knocking over a candle, and dashed for the back door. Studio microphone, sound, chairs crash. Shouting. Fire starts. Through the narrow alley, he ran into the storm. The streets of Montrevel twisted like a labyrinth. Behind him, boots pounded against cobblestones. The Inquisition was on the hunt. He ducked into a chapel at the edge of town, pushing the heavy doors closed behind him. Inside, moonlight fell through shattered stained glass, coloring the floor in blood-red hues. He fell to his knees before the altar, whispering, "God, if what I found is false, strike me down. But if it's true, show me the path." A crack of thunder answered. The crucifix above the altar shifted, and fell. It smashed against the floor, revealing a hollow compartment behind the wall. Inside lay a scroll sealed with the same serpent sigil. His eyes widened. They hit another one. He broke the seal and unrolled the parchment. It was a map, drawn centuries ago. At its center, a mark, Sanctum Custodes Veritatis, the sanctuary of the keepers of truth, and beneath it, one word, Roma. Before he could react, the chapel doors burst open. The Inquisitors entered, torches blazing. "Hand it over, Father," shouted their leader. "You know not what you carry." Antoine turned toward the altar, clutching the map. "I carry the truth of every man deceived by power." He hurled a lantern onto the pews. Flames erupted, smoke filled the chapel as he slipped out through a side passage. The night swallowed him once more, but now he had a direction: Rome. Days later, across the cold French countryside, Antoine rode a stolen horse under cover of night. Behind him, the world burned with candle. Chapter 5, The Revelation of the Hidden Order. Rome, the eternal city, where every truth and every lie eventually comes to rest. Father Antoine Morel arrived at dusk, cloaked in dust and exhaustion. He had crossed a continent haunted by shadows, hunted by faith itself. Now he stood before the towering gates of St. Peter's Basilica, the heart of the church, and the resting place of secrets older than time. He knew the keepers were waiting. The map from the hidden chapel had led him here, but not to the altar, to the catacombs beneath. He slipped inside through an ancient side entrance, descending into the labyrinth of bones, where saints and sinners were buried side by side. The deeper he went, the colder it became. His torch flickered, revealing walls etched with forgotten symbols, the serpent, the bleeding heart, and the words, Custodes Veritatis, the keepers of truth. He realized now, the keepers weren't the church's enemies, they were the church, the oldest part of it, the ones who carried the original light before it was rewritten by power. At last, he reached a grand iron door carved with 12 circles, the mark of the monks he'd seen in the murals. He pressed his hand against it, his blood, dried on his wound, stained the metal, and the door began to open. Studio microphone, sound, heavy stone grinding. Inside was a vast underground hall, lit by torches that burned without smoke. At its center stood an altar, and around it, 12 figures cloaked in shadow. One of them stepped forward, tall, aged, eyes sharp with knowledge. Father Antoine Morel, he said, you have walked the path of blood. You have broken the seal. You stand where no man has stood for centuries. Antoine raised the parchment map. You call yourselves the keepers. Then tell me, what truth is so dangerous it must be buried beneath blood and lies? The elder's voice echoed, slow and solemn. He continued, the first prophet was not sent from God. He became one through knowledge. The church feared this, for if men knew they could reach heaven through understanding, they would no longer kneel. Antoine's voice trembled, then. The gospel, the miracles, the redemption, all lies? Not lies, said the elder softly. Stories. Crafted to guide, to control, to give hope. Truth is a flame, Father. It warms, but it also burns. Antoine's torch flickered wildly. He stepped closer to the chest. Then let the world see the flame. The elder shook his head. You do not understand. Every century, one seeker comes, drawn by destiny. And each must decide, protect the illusion, or destroy the world with truth. Antoine hesitated. What would happen if I reveal it? The faith that binds billions will crumble. Chaos will reign. Kingdoms, morality, all built upon the sacred lie, gone. A silence fell. Antoine looked at the golden chest, then at the monks. He felt the weight of humanity on his shoulders, belief, hope, illusion. All trembling before him. Then, he whispered, truth cannot be owned. It must be free. He thrust his torch into the chest, setting the ancient scroll aflame. The hall erupted in cries. The 12 keepers fell to their knees as centuries of parchment burned, releasing a wind that howled through the catacombs like a dying god. From the flames rose a voice, not human, not divine, but something between. You have chosen fire, not faith. The torches burst into blinding light. Antoine screamed, and then, silence. When he awoke, he was outside, lying at the base of the Vatican steps. The dawn was breaking, golden and pure. The manuscript, the keepers, the chamber, all gone. Only a single phrase remained burned into his palm, Veritas est sacrificium. Truth is sacrifice. Weeks later, a letter arrived at a small Paris library. No name, no seal, just a single